Hello everyone, Bible believers around the world. This video is definitely going to be one of my most controversial videos ever. But one thing I've learned, especially while exposing the truth about the wicked Esau's the white man doctrine, is the fact that if you are teaching to receive approval from mankind, you're not serving the Most High Yah. Because the scripture says that the world would call evil good and would call good evil. All right. It also talks about to be a friend of the world is to be an enemy of Yah. All right. And also talks about that the world is given into the hands of the wicked. So in other words, when you're creating your lessons, when you're teaching, if your thought is, let me teach something that the world will like, you're not following Yah. All right. So in the Israelite community, there's a huge divide. The saying is, are you Negro only, or are you Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, etc.? And as I've said in the past, there's only one truth, and that is Negroes or people with Negro ancestry who are genetically a match to the Israelites, all right, to the Israelite Negroes, okay? You're not going to have somebody who doesn't even look like Jacob and comes from a completely different haplogroup, no genetic connection to us whatsoever, and then they're an Israelite. That's what we've exposed in lessons in the past about the phoniness of the One West 12 Tribes chart, because they say Mexicans are Issachar, when the majority of Mexicans are European Japhet types, Spaniards, who come from a completely different haplogroup. They're not related to us. They're not our people. They're Japheth. They're not us. And we also talked about, the Euro-Cubans and, the Native American switch and all this other type of stuff. All right. The 12 tribes chart is false. But it's not all about color, though. That's why, it's always, you Negro only, or you Latinos, Native Americans. It's not that simple. All right. The only truth is you either Negro or of Negro ancestry, or there's some connection. All right. Because I'm going to talk about something right now. In World War II, there were Israelite black men who went over to Europe and had children with Japhetic white women in France and in Germany. That's why I have this art right here. You see the American black soldier, and in modern times, you see a white woman walking around and her hair looks like a fro. That's her grandfather. All right. But you look at the skin color and you just focus on race and you'd be like, she's not us. But then you'll look at this woman here, this cartoon creation, this cartoon art, and you'd be like, she's Judah. But this will be her grandfather. All right. So we know that in World War II, we had Israelite men going over to Europe and having children with these white women. So why are we to assume that this has not happened in the reverse way, and that Japhetic men had children with Israelite women and had children that way? All right. So that's why it's genetic and not about color. Furthermore, every single Negro is not Israel. Because you see, the One West camps have deceived many into believing that Israel is the only Negroid nation of people. That is completely false. As a matter of fact, they really teach that only two groups of people are so-called black, which is the Israelites and the sons and daughters of Ham. That is completely false. Because if you are a Negro, that doesn't mean that you're automatically an Israelite. Because you realistically could be a Moabite. You could be an Ishmaelite. You could be an Edomite, because Esau is not white. He's Negro, just like his brother Jacob is Negro. Ishmael is Negro, and Moab is Negro. Esau, Edom, they're not white people. Moab is not the Chinese, and Ishmael is not every person who practices Islam. All right. So with that being the case, it's very possible that you have some of these people going around spreading all this false hate doctrine, saying Moab is the Asian devil and Esau's the red devil who can't be saved. And they might actually be a real Edomite. They might actually be a real Moabite. It's not impossible. All right. Now, getting back to the conversation at hand, this is why genetics is very important, because you have people who look like white people at first, who have Negro ancestry and are a genetic match to the Israelites because they actually have an Israelite grandfather. All right, I posted a random photo on the channel recently, and it was a vintage photo of a Japhetic woman with an afro. You see, it's stuff like that where you'll see, someone who you think is white, but their nose will be pretty wide, and their hair will grow upward and not downward. And sure enough, you do the DNA test, and they're a perfect match to us. Because remember, not only just about the World War II thing, but you had Israelites scattered into Europe, scattered into all nations, four corners of the earth, who intermarried with Japhetic peoples, all right, white peoples. I mean, I think it's the Sex and Race book from 1940 that talked about how heavy interracial marriage was between the black Jews of Spain and the white Portugal, of the black Portuguese Jews and the Japhetic white Portuguese, how heavy interracial marriage was between them. So how many people in Spain, I keep saying Spain, how many people in Portugal today who we think are Japhetic Europeans are really the ancestors of an Israelite man and Japhetic woman couple? Probably more than you think. All right. But once again, why are we to assume that this has not happened vice versa? So how many Israelites are there walking on the face of the earth today who are going around talking about how they're Judah, but they are really of the seed of Japhet because their grandfather was a white man? That's not impossible neither. All right, because we know what happened from the Israelite and Japheth side of it, but why are we to assume that it didn't happen from the man being Japheth and the woman being Israel, and that it only happened with the man being Israel and the woman being Japheth? You see? So this is why the only truth is Negro and people who have genetic connection to us. So 12 tribes chart is false. It's a devil doctrine because it attaches people to Israel who don't even have a genetic connection to us. Excuse me. They're completely different nations of people. But just saying straight up Negro only is not accurate, because not every Negro is Israel. Edomites are Negroes, Moabites are Negroes, Ishmaelites are Negroes. And also you have people who may look white or Asian, but they're really Israelites. All right. You have, a white woman who has an afro. All right. What's the deal with that? Turns out that she's a genetic match to us. Israelite grandfather. You have, a white dude who his hair grows upward and he doesn't burn in the sun. Turns out Israelite great grandfather. All right. So this is why it's Negro and people with Negro ancestry. It's not all about color. We get caught up in black and all that type of stuff, but like we've covered on this channel many times before, it's not color. All right, it's not color. So that's really all I wanted to say. Like I said, this is a very controversial lesson because a lot of the people of the One West camps would be outraged at the idea that they could not even be an Israelite. They could be a descendant of a Japhetic man who married a black woman in the 1830s. All right. And there's no physical sign of that white man on them, on their features. There's no physical sign of that because, there's a saying that, black don't fade. So in other words, a Japhetic man marrying a black woman, and then the children of them continue go on to marry other, so-called black peoples for the next 100, 200 years, there's going to be no sign of that white man whatsoever. But his seed is still there. His DNA is still there. All right. That's not really as common with Japhet, because Japhet, those negroid features will stay for a very long time. But for us Israelites, it's very easy for us to cover that stuff up. So there might be a lot of hypocrites out there who are very hateful and bullying the Gentiles, and in reality, they are a Gentile. All right, and this is why I said it's going to be so controversial, because we get caught up in all this false, about color and all that other type of stuff. Meanwhile, we got people who we think are Japheth walking around with Negro ancestry, and we got people who are dark but aren't us. They're of the seed of Japhet. Their mom was Israel, but their dad was not. All right, so just thought I'll make this video, and yeah, bye for now.